All right, let's talk about flash-based drives. Most manufacturers of flash-based drives use non-volatile NAND or NAND flash memory. This is the most common. So the solid-state drives that we showed in the previous sub-lesson will use that, and other types of flash drives will use them as well. For example, the USB flash drive. This is probably the most familiar of all flash media out there, also known as USB thumb drives. They're often retractable and can be carried on a keychain. And you can see here, this is an image of a USB flash drive connected to a laptop. Notice that the USB flash drive is lit, and that means it's connected to the USB port and it's ready to transfer data. And this drive will show up in your Windows Explorer or File Explorer as whatever volume name you gave it. You know, I might call mine Flashy or something like that. So, you know, it's good to give it a good name so you can differentiate from that drive amongst that drive and the other drives in your system. Remember, when you're done with the drive, you don't want to just disconnect it. You want to safely remove the hardware from the operating system before you physically disconnect the drive. So you do that in the notification area within Windows, and you do that from the safely remove icon. Looks like a little USB icon. And you might have to click on the little double arrow in the notification area to get that. And just watch out, because all your drives will probably be listed there. Any of your solid state drives, your CD-ROM, DVD-ROM, Blu-ray, that kind of thing. Just make sure you're actually disconnecting the right drive. That's why it's good to name it. So USB flash drives, very common device. Another common type of flash-based drive is the SD card, or secure digital card. And technically, these are basically the same as a USB flash drive. They're solid state. They use NAND memory and have most of the same pros and cons as a USB flash drive, but the difference is the form factor and therefore the usage for this device. You know, you can't connect this directly to a USB port. It's meant to be inserted inside of some type of device. So here we have a standard size SD card and also a micro SD card. And these two are used usually for some type of mobile device. The larger size, you might be in a camera or a camcorder or a little audio player or what have you. And the smaller size, you'll often use that micro size for add-ons as memory for your smartphone or another small device like that. Let's show both of these now and show some examples and adapters that you can use as well. All right, so here we have a couple examples of devices. The first is the USB flash drive, and this is a SanDisk, and it's a 16 gig, and you can see that it is retractable, and it kind of locks into place, and it'll light up when you do plug it into a USB port. So that's the USB flash drive. And then we have a couple SD cards. Here's the standard SD, and you can see the connectors here. Whenever you're handling these, try not to touch the connectors. Very important. And here's a micro SD card. So very small, might be tough to handle, but again, stay off the connectors if you can. And so you can really see the difference in size here. This is your standard USB flash drive, though nowadays they make much smaller ones that might just be this big and be as much as 64 gigabyte. So, and you could lose them very easily, so watch out for that. But you can see the size difference between the three of these. Now, with these, you'll usually use these SD cards, you know, on a smartphone or something, or on a digital camera or camcorder. But how can you move the data to your computer? Well, if you don't have wireless or some type of option on your camera or other device, you'll need to connect this into the system. And if you don't have an SD slot, you'll need to use some type of adapter, such as this. This is a little SD to USB adapter. Just take the cap off and show this here. And you can see you have a full-size SD slot and a micro SD slot, and you have a USB connector just to connect to the computer. So we could connect this or this and read that data right through the USB. And usually if you're dealing with big files, audio or video, you probably want to get yourself a USB 3.0 device, so you can, move the data a lot faster. Otherwise, if you have USB 2.0, you're going to be waiting forever to get those files across. Now, what if you don't have this micro SD? Well, there's a couple options. This is a little miniature micro SD adapter, which goes to USB. Or you could use an adapter such as this. This actually is not a SD card, it's an adapter. And you can plug your smaller size micro SD directly into that. And then that could be plugged into a slot such as this. But I like these. This is a Transcend adapter. And, these are the two most common SD cards I'm going to use, the standard size and the micro. So this has those two, so it works great for me. And I have these cards in like 5 or 6 different devices. So I'm constantly moving these about into this device to, copy the data over to my audio video system. So there's a couple examples of some adapters and also the USB flash drive and the SD cards that you'll see out there. Another type of flash-based drive is the CF card or compact flash card. Another type of solid-state memory that you might see used in handheld computers or high-end cameras or micro drives. And they're broken up into 2 different types. There's type 1 cards that are 3.3 millimeters thick, and those are used for, say, cameras, handheld computers. And then type 2 cards that are 5 millimeters thick that might be used for micro drives. These have been pretty much overshadowed by the SD card, but you might still see them out there. Common capacities for CF cards usually max out at 32 gigabyte, though the technology can go further. Speeds are generally between 6 and 133 megabytes per second, but they could go as high as 167 megabytes per second with the CF version 6 standard. So CF cards, you might see them in some devices, but generally it's going to be more the SD card. And another type is eMMC. MMC, or the multimedia card standard, was the original card standard before SD cards. And nowadays we have embedded MMC. And your smartphone or your tablet might just use embedded MMC for its main storage. And it can transfer somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 megabytes per second. But this has been replaced in some cases by the SD card, and for additional storage, you'll almost always use SD cards. So there's some of your flash-based drives. You got USB flash drives, SD cards, CF cards, and eMMC. So know the basics for each of those for the exam.